Hello, BookTube. Today I'm continuing with my reprise of the alphabet tags created by Jim of Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff. Today, the S tag. S is for science fiction and fantasy. Which science fiction author have you read the most books by? So this prompt is going to be bittersweet. Science fiction and fantasy is my favorite genre by a long shot. Ever since I was a child, science fiction and fantasy has been what I gravitated towards, whether reading cartoons, television, movies, comics. Creatively, I think in terms of science fiction and fantasy. And it's been that way for a very, very long time, and for the most part continues to be that way, except when it comes to science fiction and fantasy in prose. I have, over the last few years, fallen out of love with that form of science fiction and fantasy. Although, to be perfectly honest, I've also fallen out of love with most forms of prose fiction. And I've wondered about that for quite a while. And I'm probably going to have another stab at it in the new year when I try to make a series of videos looking at the various reading periods of my reading life. But that's videos for another day. So, to answer the question, which science fiction author have I read the most books by? I'm going to go with China Miéville. China Miéville is a British author whose works are primarily science fiction and fantasy, although he does tip his toes in other genres as well as nonfiction. I'm not entirely sure what he has written the last few years. I haven't really kept up with him or what's currently going on in science fiction and fantasy. But I think I have read all of his adult books. Or at least attempted to. So I've read all three of the Postlog novels: Perdido Street Station, The Scar, and Iron Council. I've also read Kraken. I have attempted to read The City in the City and Embassy Town, and also King Rat, his forgotten first novel. I think I've also dipped into one of his two young adult novels, and also his short story collection. I think I've also dipped into that. So, with all of that counted, I think he is the my single most read science fiction author. Sticking with science fiction, S is for Star Trek. Which is your favorite Star Trek series? For me, it remains Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Star Trek Deep Space Nine is a rather unique Star Trek series in that instead of being set on a starship, it is set on a space station. And this allows Star Trek Deep Space Nine to experiment with long-term narratives rather than the episodic stories that most Star Trek is known for. I haven't really kept up to date with what's currently going on with Star Trek, so I haven't really looked at Star Trek Discovery or Strange New Worlds or Picard or whatever else is coming up. I mean, I have looked at some clips, but my enthusiasm for Star Trek has waned the last few years. And even to where I think it's been probably about 10 years since I made a concerted effort to watch any of the series. Part of that is that I don't want to do really want to subscribe to Paramount Plus to be able to access Star Trek when I want it. S is for school story. What is your favorite book with a school setting? I'm going to go with a manga here, and I'm going to go with Tolapan Hanako-kun by Aide Iro. Tolapan Hanako-kun is a manga series that is set almost exclusively at a school. Nene Yashiro is a student at the school. She would be the, I think, equivalent of a freshman in high school, who one day goes to a toilet stall and performs a set ritual that she is told if she does will summon the spirit known as the Tolaban Hanako-san, and the spirit will then grant her a wish. Nene performs the ritual and successfully summons Hanako-san. However, unlike the traditional form of this legend, this particular Hanako-san is not the ghost of a young woman, but rather the ghost of a young man. Amane. Oh, I think I am. And so he grants Nene her wish, and it goes horribly. And Hanako-san has to, or Hanako-kun has to save her from that, the consequences of her wish. And in exchange, Nene has to become Amane's assistant, sort of regulating his. Basically, she first starts off cleaning his bathroom stall, and later she helps him in his duties with the other supernaturals at this school. This school is quite haunted. There are 7 major hauntings or school mysteries, of which Hanako-kun, as the 7th, has a supervisory authority over the other 6. And there are also a number of minor hauntings as well. Joining Nene and Amane in their sort of adventures is a young trainee exorcist named Ko, who attempts to exorcise Amane, but ends up becoming best of friends with him and Nene, much to his older brother's chagrin. And they just have some wild and amazing adventures. Tolaban Hanako-kun is one of my favorite series, and I'm actually kind of tempted to reread the whole series once again when the next volume comes out, which should be in January if I'm lucky. So yeah, really looking forward to that. I think 2025 is going to end up being even more of a manga year than this year is. S is for satire. Which is your favorite satirical novel? I don't think I have one. Okay, now we have once again a log cabin prompt. So I am unfortunately once again trapped in a log cabin with no internet and no Kindle. In the log cabin are 4 books: Scarlet Sins by Dane Cobain, The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Huang, The Accidental by Ali Smith, and City by Clifford D. Seamack. Which book do you start reading? Which book will you give as a gift to a booktuber? Which booktuber? It is a little cold in the cabin, so which book would you burn in the hearth for warmth? And which would you leave behind for the next visitor? I would probably escape the cabin and just burn it down. I have no experience with any of these books, although I guess I would probably save City by Clifford D. Seamack and gift it to Sean D. Stanfest, who is a big fan of Clifford D. C. Mack. S is for Steinbeck. Which is your favorite Steinbeck novel? Well, I have not read deeply enough into Steinbeck's oeuvre to really have a favorite. The only novel by Steinbeck I have read is The Grapes of Wrath. And while I managed to read it and maybe like it when I was younger, I attempted to reread it earlier this year, I think in July, and it went miserably. And I ended up not finishing it. So, yeah. Again, another subject I really need to. I've been obsessing over, and we'll take another stab at in the new year. S is for Sartre. Is Sartre worth reading? I don't know. I have never read him myself. S is for Shakespeare. Which is your favorite Shakespeare play? So, I've never been all that fond of Shakespeare. I've never connected to his work. That said, if I were forced to pick a favorite, I think it would probably be Richard III, with a soft spot for Titus Andronicus. I don't know why. What was the last Shakespeare play you saw performed at the theater? So, I don't know how deeply I went with my response in the last time I did this tag. So, back in 2006 when I was in San Francisco, they had Shakespeare in the Park. And I decided to go, although unfortunately I ended up going by myself and I got lost. The bus I took me to Daly City and tried to switch around and go the right way. And then I ended up getting lost at the Presidio because the performance was taking place somewhere along in there, and it was a whole thing. I was it was not a pleasant experience. I think I saw maybe 10 minutes of the performance before I decided to just leave because I'm like, I need to figure out how I'm going to actually get home from here, which I eventually managed to do, but it was not a particularly pleasant evening, or afternoon for that matter. S is for Stalin. Stalin was a monster, but does he have any redeeming qualities? No. S is for short story. What is your preferred length of fictional reading material? As long as it needs to be. Although, can you please cut down on the bloating? S is for subscribers. This isn't a prompt, but at this point, Jim had just recently passed 500 subscribers, so he took this opportunity to thank his viewers. So on to the bonus prompts. S is for Scotland. What is your favorite book set in Scotland? I don't actually recall having read a book set in Scotland. S is for supernatural. What is your favorite supernatural story? So here I'm going to go in a slightly different direction than full-throated fantasy and go with The Return of the Sorcerer by Clark Ashton Smith. It's about a young man who takes on a secretarial job for an old sorcerer whose deceased brother returns seeking revenge. Where are we at here? S is for superhero. Who is your favorite superhero? Explosive. Oh, shoot. Bakugo from My Hero Academia. He had. My Hero Academia is a Japanese manga series inspired by American superhero comics. It's about a young man named Izuku Midoriya who admires superheroes. He is obsessed with superheroes. Unfortunately, while 80% of the human population and some non-human population have superpowers called quirks, Izuku does not. He has no superpowers at all. However, an act of bravery inspires Izuku's idol and the number one hero in Japan, All Might, to take him on as an apprentice. And All Might grants Izuku his power, his quirk, One for All, which can be passed on and inherited. And this allows Izuku to go to a superhero school and become a superhero. One of Izuku's classmates is a rowdy, angry young man named Bakugo, who was a childhood friend of Izuku's and went to the same school. And for much of the series, Izuku, or Bakugo, or at least the initial part, Bakugo and Izuku do not have the best relationship. Although, as the series progresses, Bakugo's character undergoes an amazing transformation, and it is just a joy to read that transformation. And Bakugo and his crazy superhero name is just, it's wonderful. Much like, so I am looking forward to the next volumes of My Hero Academia and dreading the final volume, which should probably be coming out either sometime this kind of around this time next year or early in 2026. And then I will embark on a massive reread of the entire series, and I cannot wait for it. Moving on to American superheroes, I think from Marvel it would be Wiccan. Wiccan is a much I won't say much misused. He's very little used. Unfortunately, he is a relatively newer character. Next year will be his 20th anniversary of its introduction. He is a longtime member of a superhero team called the Young Avengers, and he has reality warping powers similar to the Scarlet Witch, who is, after some fashion, Wiccan's mother. It's complicated and probably could have been better done, but anyway. But Wiccan is my favorite Marvel hero. My favorite DC superhero would be Wonder Woman. And she needs no introduction. S is for Scandinavian noir. Have you tried this subgenre of crime fiction? No, I have not. So that was the S tag. If you'd like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged. I was going to try an experiment to see if I could post like a copy of the prompts into the show notes down below, but unfortunately I have my tablet off, and in a few minutes I'm going to have to go and start some baked chicken. So that's going to be occupying my time. So anyway, BookTube, until I see you tomorrow with some more videos, including weekly reads. Thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.